Welcome to The Business Behind Your Business, the podcast where we delve into the financial strategies and insights that drive success for small and medium-sized business owners. I'm your host, Paul Sweeney, and in each episode we bring you expert guests who share practical advice, real-world experiences, and actionable tips to empower you on your business journey. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting out, get ready to uncover the secrets to success and gain valuable insights into the business behind your business. So culture, it's either happening to us by default or by design. If you've got a team, you've got employees, you've already got culture. The only question is whether it's helping you grow or quietly costing you time, energy, and good people. And today's guest, Lisa Even, calls it the good ripple effect. So what do you do as a leader ripples through everything, standards, attitude, accountability, and how people treat their customers when you're not in the room. Today, we're going to get practical. We're going to look at joy at work without all the fluff and how to measure it like a bank account and how to run small leadership experiments that actually stick. Look, if you're running a small business and you feel like you're carrying too much of the load, this conversation will give you a better way forward. Welcome to the Business Behind Your Business podcast. I'm Paul Sweeney, and each week we have practical conversations to help business owners like you build stronger businesses, better teams, and more freedom from the business. As I mentioned, Lisa Even is joining us today, and it's a delight to have her here. Her leadership journey didn't actually start in a boardroom, started in a small cafe where she learned early that leadership isn't about dashboards or polished presentations. It's about how you show up, how people feel around you, and the standards that you set every day. And today, Lisa works with leaders and teams to build positive cultures on purpose, cultures where people want to show up, take responsibility, and do meaningful work. Her work is practical, grounded, and very human, which is why I wanted to have her on the show, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today. So, Lisa, welcome to the Business Behind Your Business.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Look, I'm excited because this is a conversation, and I'm just thinking back to already some of the engagements I've seen in the hours of today. For me, it's morning, and I've already seen this example of how a team treats customers in different businesses. I've already experienced that, and we've seen some good and some bad. And I know that there was one conversation we overheard where it's like, I don't want to deal with that customer. These are real incidents, real stories, and real things that we encounter on a day-to-day. How did you get into this idea of, I guess you call it the good ripple effect, and you'll explain to us what that actually means, but why move from your background into this kind of area, which seems a little bit out there to a lot of people because they don't experience this whole idea of joy in their work?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. So I grew up in healthcare, and I feel like much like accounting and some of the I call them like highly regulated, very serious sort of topics, I at least got into healthcare, and it was like, I want to help save lives and make people, feel better. Well, you quickly start to realize that most of your day is spent helping people maybe on the worst day of their lives. And healthcare is 24/7. And there are a lot of dynamics, whether it's the people that you work with or the people that you serve. And about 3-4 years in, I realized my team needed some work in terms of treating each other better. Like, we needed a better culture. And right around that same time, my husband and I were kind of on this side quest to make joy our job. And those have essentially collided. And that's what I do now, is speaking and training on team culture, but then also the lens of how do you make joy your job? Because a lot of our jobs are not glamorous, and they're hard, and they're fast. So how do we fuel our tank just a little bit? And we actually measure our joy like a bank account. So those are two very big buckets, but I like to carry those around.
Fantastic. Look, I'm looking forward to diving into more about what that actually means in life, because in practical sense, because we've all worked in environments, and maybe that's the environment that we have in our business today, is one where the culture is not quite right, or that one employee is causing the bad ripple of
Exactly.
discomfort, animosity, just anger and frustration. How do we move away from that? Because it is very common in a lot of organizations. And look, you spend so much time there. How do we actually turn that on its head and introduce what you call the good ripple effect?
Yeah, well, the good ripple effect, I think there are really three main things that show up in that, and I call them like SEA, like the C, and it's all about this idea that how you show up matters, how you engage matters, and how you adapt matters. And when we start to think about the global culture, I often go real small and I start with the people that are causing the culture. So if you've got someone that maybe isn't, they're a little toxic, they're not friendly, they're not fun, they're, just causing some chaos, start there. And it really does take some finesse to have that conversation around. I describe it as the way that you show up is a lot like weather. You bring the weather into the room with you, whether it's your energy or what you say or what you do. And if you're bringing a storm cloud into this meeting, what's that doing for the dynamics of that? And it's starting to equate it to weather. And then I, pitch it back to them and I say, what weather do you think you're bringing to our team? And, they kind of go, And it's like, well, let's start there, because I think when we think about having good ripple effect, it's how people experience you. And I want you to have better weather. And, as the conversations go on, it's like you can either have good weather here and have good ripple effect, or maybe this isn't the place for you. And it's just kind of this slow evolution of conversation that you set the expectation and then you're like, but have them reflect on it. Like, are you having good ripple effect? And they get real like, oh. And so that's one of the pieces. The other piece is I've got some tools on my website that you can grab. And those are really about thinking about more of the global culture. So the attitudes, the behaviors, and the beliefs. If you've got a behavior where, let's say you walk out of a meeting, you turn to each other and you say, gosh, that could have been an email. Such a waste. Or you've got things where people turn to each other and they say, nothing changes around here. Or you've got people that literally in a meeting are like not turning their cameras on, or they're not paying attention. Like those are all little signals. And so it's kind of like, well, how do we start creating good ripple effect in those tiny micro behaviors? Because your attitudes, your behaviors, and your beliefs is your culture.
I'm seeing a lot of business owners don't quite grasp the effect of that. So we're talking about a ripple here, and a ripple gets bigger at the longer it goes.
Yes.
And we often don't. We wait till the ripple is a wave and
it's
causing
like a tsunami.
issues before we join it. Yeah,
Yeah, it's true.
So how do we identify when's the time to have that conversation?
Yeah. A lot of times I watch a behavior for a little while and I want to see it. So we had this really interesting behavior on one of my teams. I led a number of teams, and one of my teams was doing this really interesting thing where they would go into the room with a patient. So if you're in accounting or some other industry, you go in with your client, right? And they were being amazing to the patient, like loving on them and taking care of them. And then they would come out of the room and they would be sort of jerks to each other. They would walk over and be like, I was in there forever. What have you been doing? Why isn't this done? And I was watching it and I was like, thinking to myself, I saw it like in little pockets. I'm like, I wonder why. And so I always get curious. And in some of their one-on-ones, I started to ask, I said, okay, I just want you to answer this question truthfully. Are we too busy to be friendly? And they were like, oh yeah, I am busy saving lives. And I was like, oh, we are. Are we? I'm like, and then it took me a little while to then like gather the full picture, right? Like almost an investigator being like, how deep is this problem? And then once I saw that it was a pretty deep problem, then I started to have those conversations in one-on-ones about, well, what if we could be busy and friendly? Like, what if two things could exist at once? And what if that would actually create stronger impact? And, some of them kind of crossed their arms and looked at me like she's full of it, right? But a few of them were kind of like, well, I hadn't really thought about it. I'm like, yeah. And then I would kind of talk to them about like our attitudes feed our behaviors, which feed our beliefs. And if we believe that we're too busy to be friendly, our culture is going to reflect that.
And I think that's one of the things that people will pick up on, even if we don't believe they see it. As you were talking about that whole idea of treating patients one way and treating your teammates or your colleagues a different way, I was instantly thinking back to a recent experience. Unfortunate for me is I've had two children turn up to emergency departments recently at hospital. And I'm just thinking the the attitude towards us as the patient was great, but in one situation, I was actually able to observe the nurses and the medical staff at their desk. And
Yeah.
what I guess they weren't aware of was how many people observe them in the encounters they have with each other at their desk or when they're on the phone chasing information from another department. And I was thinking, well, I hope that person's not going to come and talk to us because really they don't want to be here. Or they're
Yes.
pretty aggressive. Are they going to be aggressive to me?
Yeah. It's all of the I would say, like, everything you do and say is a ripple, happy or crappy your choice, and it spreads. The definition of a ripple effect is a disturbance, and you're disturbing the water, and that's going to set off a chain reaction where it disturbs everything around you, and helping people see it from not only the macro lens, but the micro lens is so important. It's almost like working on the system versus working in, and you have to do both. You're talking about it at your staff meetings. You're starting your, morning meeting off with like a story or a way that you served a client. But then you also have to be kind of tackling it in your one-on-ones of like, and I think it's hard in industries where you're not having great conversations and interactions all day. It can be really hard, and so it's kind of like, how do I give a couple of tools on how do I flip the switch to say, maybe I'm not having the best ripple effect here. Here's how I can shift it. And part of that is really being able to say, I have the $50 rule where you start the day with $50 in cash and they're $1 bills. And anything that comes into your space and would normally make you feel a little negative. Well, if you're going to give any negativity back to it, you have to spend your money. And so if it's like, cranky email comes in, how much money do I want to give it? How much energy do I want to give it? Because I only have $50 to spend. Well, all of a sudden, that one email that might have like threw you off off to the side and been like, now I'm upset. You're kind of like, nah, it's not worth my money. It's not worth getting upset. It's not worth bad ripple effect. No, thank you.
Mm. I think sometimes also the way that we approach it, if we approach with an aggressive attitude, we're creating more
More.
aggression from the customer, and I guess that is that ripple effect. But I just think about some of the interactions because we get a lot of unhappy interactions because we deal with
Yeah.
one of the things we deal with is taxation, which never makes anybody happy. Um,
No.
so often, though, they are coming from a situation where they've got an issue and it's a big issue for them. But to us, it's just sometimes it's a case of it's an inconvenient issue because it comes in at the wrong time when we're wanting to focus on something else. But how do we answer and respond to that in a positive way without then inflaming the situation? Because it's particularly when we're dealing with email, to inflame that situation.
Absolutely. I often will say, like, I hold my emotions almost like a tennis ball where it feels just a little bit separate from my identity, right? Like when we say, I'm so mad, it's like, no, I'm feeling mad, right? There's this like little bit of separation from the emotion and like the human. And if you almost imagine you're carrying them in your hand, it gives you a sense of being able to slightly like pause and say, what does this situation need? I was in Illinois. I live in Iowa, which is in the center of the US, and I was going to Illinois for a speaking event. And I went to a coffee shop and I ordered up my coffee ahead. And normally they have the coffee at the to-go coffees at the end of the counter. And this particular store had the coffees right near the register. And so I could see my coffee, but there was like this pile of people that I needed to kind of wade through. And I was like one person away from my coffee. And I was like, oh, excuse me. And, she turned around and almost looked like, excuse you. And it was like one of those moments where, we have this opportunity not only to cause impact, right, to cause ripple effect, but we also have the choice on like, how do we react to it? And in that moment, I wanted to be like, okay, time out. You are clearly in my way. Right. But I was like, no, no, we don't say that. And I just, I kind of was like, that beautiful little coffee right there. I'm just going to grab that. And she barely moved over and I grabbed my coffee and I went on my way. And I was like slightly, cranky about it because I was just like, do you know what bad ripple effect you're putting out into the world? But I also was a little bit thankful that I had the timeout to be like, I don't want to spread that. That stops there. Like that's not me. And I feel like at work sometimes that can be it stops here. Like that ripple effect, I can't pass it on.
Yeah, it's a challenge in so many ways. Those small amounts, but they do build up quite significantly.
They
I
do.
want to just go back one step here because a lot of our listeners are business owners themselves, and we often think that the bad ripples are caused by our team. But a lot of the time, as owners, we bring our negative energy to the
Yeah.
business. We bring that negative energy from, I don't know, maybe the kids were difficult to on the way way to the office or things like that, and we bring that negative energy into work, and it has a ripple effect, not a good ripple effect
Yeah.
on our team, but also on how we go about our day. So, what are some of the things that we should be identifying in our own behavior as business owners?
Yeah, well, the thing that I often will say is I want you to pretend for a moment that you can give someone at your office a gift. Like someone that you work with in your business a gift, and I want you to like imagine the person, like have a person in mind. And then I want you to imagine like what you're going to give them. And this gift can be like coffee. It can be a trip to Mexico. Like it can, I always like kind of embellish it a bit of like, you can give them a gift. And you're like, okay, I'll give him a gift. And then I'm like, well, what if the gift that you're actually giving is your presence? Like your presence is the present, and you are giving a gift in every interaction that you're a part of. And sometimes it's like, I know I had a rough morning or I know I had a tough meeting, but like I'm not going to give that present or that gift to someone else. And it's not that you need to be perfect in sunshine and rainbows. It's just that awareness of I do need to be mindful in this moment to kind of like, if you're like, well, I only got 10 minutes, let's go. Like that affects people. And so it's like that gift is really important. I think the other thing that I would say is that people prepare for you. We prepare for the weather. I would say like stormy weather, snowy weather, like we prepare for it. And if you've ever saw someone like walking down the hallway and you just think, gosh, not today. Like I just can't deal with them today. Like I just can't. They prepare for us just like we prepare for them. And so that sometimes will snap me back out of it of like, if I am busy and anxious or angry all the time, they're going to prepare for it and they're going to expect my gift, the gift that I'm giving, my presence to kind of be not so great. And I don't know if that helps, but it's just almost that awareness of like stop, hang on. I can do this differently.
I think one of the challenges, or the big challenge, is that where we're at with a lot of business owners is there's a lot of stress that we're bringing to
Yeah.
the business, to every engagement, every encounter. We've got a lot of stress. We've still got financial stress. We've got weather stress from drought, flood,
Yeah, you guys
bushfires,
do.
soaring fuel prices, doubts and so, and we're bringing a lot of that. Now, I think one of the things you're suggesting here is not to put on that sort of plastic happy type
No.
fake joiners, but
Right.
you're talking about some real practical steps here. And how have you seen that working with businesses, and what's been some of the outcomes that you've seen, like the improvements that you've seen in some of the businesses you've worked with?
Yeah. And the quick side story, just so folks have a background. So I was working in corporate, my husband, same thing. We were burnt out. And one night I said to him, I just need to see something on our calendar that's not work and not a responsibility. And so it's really started at home. And my husband's like, okay, well, what do you mean? And I was like, well, I don't know. I just feel like we need to have something on our calendar that we would enjoy. And I said, I think that if we push joy off, like those things that we enjoy until after the kids, after the projects, after the financials are right, after, it's almost like we're pushing it forward. We're going to get to the end of our lives and look backwards and think, shoot, we missed it. Like we forgot to enjoy it. And I said, it kind of almost like flippantly, I said, I want to make joy my job because I don't think anybody's going to come and save us and be like, hey, I'm Joy. Do you want to have do you want to have a great time? Do you want to feel less stressed? And my husband is in healthcare and we measure everything, right? Just like in accounting, just like in banking and finance. And I said, and what if we could measure it? Like, what if we could track it like a comorbidity in healthcare or like our bank account? And he's like, huh. And so we actually hung a whiteboard in our bedroom and we started to like list out some things that we could do to just bring the stress down. Like we weren't going to fix everything that was going on, but it was like, what if we carved out 10 or 15 minutes here and there? Like, what would that look like? And it turned into us having a list, putting it on our calendar and measuring it. And the same holds true for teams. As I was having a lot of joy in my personal life and finding like little tiny ways to like take the edge off, I said, well, why couldn't I do that with teams? And so we started to do that at work as well. And I think the key here is not everything is for everyone. So if you're trying to create joy at work and you're like, oh, we should have a potluck, half the people are going to hate it and half the people are going to love it. And you should say to the people, like, it's okay to the people who don't like the potluck, it's not for you. Like, you don't have to pretend. Like, don't ruin it for everybody, but like, you don't have to pretend. And so finding ways, whether it's, March Madness brackets or, World Cup soccer or, bringing in a particular thing, if you can start to create just a little mix up of a moment, almost 2, 3, 4 minute moments at work, you start to get people to come down from that fight or flight and they start to kind of go, oh, wait, I forgot that I was this human at one point. Like I can have a moment of like not cortisol rushing through my veins. Like I can chill for a moment. So and I know that sounds easier said than done, but it's the awareness to like, that's what we want to go after. And then I've got a couple books out on Amazon that are more from a personal standpoint of like how you actually execute on that and how you measure it. And the same holds true with the team. Like you can actually do that. You just got to start small and kind of tinker along the way.
That's great to hear that. And I love the bit about being able to measure the joy. Because one of the questions I ask a business owner when I first start working with them is, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your current level of stress? And then I ask them, what would you like it to be? And a lot of the time is that they're not having time to do those things that give them joy. They're pushing them aside. They're not, I often say, when's the last time you had a holiday? And it's like 4 to 10 years
Never.
ago. And I'm thinking, well,
Yeah.
that's no good. You've got to actually look after yourself and do those things that give yourself joy. And as you mentioned, a lot of people put off that reward or those little incentives that they give themselves and things that they really look forward to because they're so busy doing their work, which is, I guess, a bad cycle there because it just creates more and more stress and you move away. But you've got some practical tips on you've given us already a couple of practical tips, and
Yeah.
I'm sure there's more in the books, which I'd encourage people to get a hold of, and we'll put links to those in the show notes. But practically, if you actually have some practical steps, and we all love a scoreboard, we all love a measurement.
Yeah.
We like to be able to say, yes, we're achieving something, and seeing that visible progress, I think, is a big thing.
Absolutely.
So, we mentioned in teams some of those building engagements or those types of activities. What are some other ways that a business owner can sort of, I guess, track the joy in their business,
Yeah.
like their bank account?
Well, and I think it goes twofold. The first thing, that if you're not having joy in your personal life and you try to like force it on your team, they're going to call BS real quick. So I often will say, like, start with you, right? And they need to see you being a little bit lighter when you walk. And so I often will say, like, and I literally have 200 ideas and joy challenges in my books. But the idea is like, if you can start to find ways that fuel you up, and I'm talking like, if you enjoy coffee in the morning, you're going to take 5 minutes and you're going to watch that coffee pot brew and it's going to bring you joy. Like I'm talking like bite size. So don't think that I'm saying like, well, you need to take a holiday. No, I'm thinking like 5, 10 minute increments here and there. And once you've got kind of I always say like that muscle built, then you can start to like infuse that into your team to do some engagement activities. But if you try to do the engagement activities or the joy type things at work, but you're not having any yourself, you've really created a thing where they're like, I'm going to call BS on this, and then you won't be able to have it. So you do have to be living it a little bit before you kind of push it onto a team and say like, hey, I do want us to take 5 or 10 minutes today for this, or I do want us to, do this sort of team building activity. If you're not having it, they won't believe you.
Absolutely. I think your employees are very quick to pick up on, as you said, the BS, or the don't do what I say,
Yeah.
don't do what I do, just do what I say.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to implement this change, I think one of the things that I find that when you want to make a change, you can't really do it on your own. You need to tell somebody about it. So if
Yeah.
you're trying to make a change or be deliberate about a change and introduce those moments of joy for yourself first as the business
Yeah.
owner, would you recommend letting your team know, hey, I've identified a need for a change in my behavior, the way I approach, this is what I'm doing. I need your support, or can you call me out if I'm not doing this?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And whether it's your team or like a friend or a spouse. And then I think the other acknowledgement too is there are some really fun ways where, well, what if I want to do joy with someone else, but it's not their type of joy? You know, my husband loves football and I don't. I don't. I just like American football. I'm like, I would love to go to a game, but I don't know enough to know enough. And so that one of my favorite like joy challenges is to get into someone else's joy. And so, you know, once a month, I sit down in our living room and I watch a game with him. And my only job is to enjoy his joy. So, you know, when he says, did you see that guy throw for 67 yards and rush 40 whatevers? And I was like, no, I didn't, but tell me about it. And like before I know it, my husband's in the garage grabbing a football, showing me how to hold the ball. And I'm like, this is how you do it. And he's like, this is how I do it. And so it's just kind of a thing where, you know, if you've got someone that can hold you accountable, and maybe if you're sitting there thinking, like, I don't know, like, what would I even do for joy? A, I have tons of ideas in the book. And B, just get into someone else's joy and enjoy their joy. And you'd be shocked at like how much joy you find in their joy. And you didn't even have to work hard. You didn't have to think of the joy. You didn't have to plan the joy. You just got to step into someone else's world and see it.
I love the idea of building it up like a muscle and starting with something small and it becoming easier. And there's always been this saying that when you do something good with somebody else, you're actually making yourself feel better as well.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there is a bit of selfishness in sharing in somebody's joy, because there
Oh,
is
yeah.
a bit of a kickback for you. But the big thing is you're helping them do the things that they love, experience their joy, but you're actually supporting them in that process. So, look, I know there's lots of practical examples you've given us in the book, because one of the problems I have, I'm not a very creative person. I'm always looking for ideas and not sure what to do.
Yeah.
So if you're like me as a business owner, the book's going to help you on your way here, give you some starters, some practical tips on not just how to get started, but how to measure that joy and how to improve, create that good ripple in your business. And I think that's a really important thing. So, Lisa, we've mentioned the books. How else do our listeners get in touch with you if they want to get some more help
Yeah.
in implementing this good ripple effect in their business?
Yeah. LisaEven.com is my website. And then I'm on social, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram.
Fantastic. And we'll share those links as always in the show notes and also on the businessbehindyourbusiness.com website for you to check out. And look, if you've got joy from this conversation, because I have, and the best thing is share that joy, share it with somebody else, share it with somebody that needs to hear it. And look, we all know a business owner who's having a hard time, struggling, and needs to hear this message. So please do them a favor as well as yourself and share this message of the good ripple effect with a fellow business owner or somebody else that just needs a bit more joy in their life who's been putting it off. Lisa, it's been an absolutely, dare I say, a joyful conversation.
Absolutely.
It's been absolutely great for us, and I really appreciate the way that you've brought it to us. And certainly, look, if we were to say one thing, it's not a touchy-feely subject. It's some real practical beneficial actions
Absolutely.
that we can take today, and it starts with us. And thank you, Lisa, for sharing with us on the Business Behind Your Business podcast. Thank you again.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Business Behind Your Business. We hope you found today's discussion insightful and valuable for your business journey. Before we go, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Share it with fellow business owners who could benefit, and send in your burning questions, because we love hearing from you. Missed any of our previous episodes or looking for additional resources to help grow your business? Head over to our website at thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. There you'll find our full archive of past episodes, along with show notes, transcripts, and links to valuable resources mentioned in each episode. Your journey to business success continues at thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. Until next time, stay inspired, stay informed, and keep building the business of your dreams.